Alright, so before I get started, I just want you to quickly imagine something for me to kind of, I guess, set you in the mood. So imagine at a flick of a switch, you can have unlimited, reliable power that is not only green with no CO2 emissions, no significant radiation, and no large physical footprint on the Earth itself. So what I'm describing to you is what nuclear fusion is promised to be. Nuclear fusion is the power source that powers the sun. It's caused by the fusion of hydrogen atoms into helium at extremely high temperatures and speeds, which as a result releases a large amount of energy in the process. Now it's currently being developed by scientists and nations around the world. And the example I'd like to focus on today is a reactor being developed in France called ITER, which is an acronym for the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. It's a collaboration of 35 different countries, including the US, the EU, Russia, China, Japan, and Korea. So basically all the large nations of the world. Its purpose is to create a working fusion reactor that is able to demonstrate concepts that are only on paper right now. And so it's my belief that with continued funding of this reactor, we will enable nuclear fusion to become a reality by the year 2030. I believe this for a couple of reasons. Notably, ITER has received significant investments already to get it started. Secondly, it's on the verge of technological and physical breakthroughs. And finally, I'll finish by kind of going more big picture and why this is the best shot we have at fusion in the world. So first of all, its investments it's already received. The total price tag for this project is expected to be around 20 billion euros or 22 billion USD. And according to Thomas Moore at Sky News, who's reported often on this subject, the project has already received, as of last year, about 15 billion euros. Now this pricing and investment is broken down by country, according to ITER in their Facts and Figures online page, in which Europe takes the brunt of the cost at about 45.6%, and the remainder is shared equally by the remaining member nations at about 10% each. And so even though this sounds like a high price tag per nation, actually, according to ITER, they deliver very little monetary contribution to the project. Instead, most of the contributions are in the form of completed components, systems, and buildings. So a couple important things here. It's already received over 75% of its funding required, and also this is a significant return on investment immediately as it's delivered to the project, and the components are already being completed, and they just need to be assembled. Speaking of assembly, on the my second point, nuclear fusion at ITER is reaching, in the coming years, a significant number of breakthroughs. Most notably, ITER has reported last year in their annual report that the ground structure and seismic foundations of the reactor are in place, and now they're moving on to the second phase of their construction, in which they're building the reactor itself. This is in accordance also with their major timelines and events, wherein they want to complete construction by the year 2025, and in that same year activate the reactor for the first time, which is a milestone known as first plasma. Now a little bit on first plasma, Matteo Barberino, who's an official at the AIEA, which is an energy association that kind of oversees a lot of fusion experiments. He notes that ITER is expected to produce about a 10-to-1 ratio in terms of output to input, which is something that has never been done before, with the best performing reactor reaching about a 2/3 to 1 ratio, and that this reaction will occur at temperatures hotter than the sun. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're really dealing with here. And so now I've kind of talked a lot about the reactor itself and why it's a good idea to keep on funding it, but more big picture now. Fusion has always remained on the horizon. It always has a notorious reputation in the world of science of being, just 10 or 20 years down the line, and it never has really become a reality ever since like the 80s when it had a really big push. But now, fusion in this sense is not really being held back by technology, as significant private investors such as Bob Mumgaard, who's the CEO of one of the private companies looking to invest in creating this. He actually believes that it's more of an engineering challenge rather than a physics problem. In that sense, like, we have the technology to do it, and it's all proven in math, but it just needs to be applied to a real world basically situation. And that instead, the main obstacle to this is in fact our funding. So Nathaniel Sharping, in a Debrief magazine interview where he interviewed the head of communication at ITER, notes that They believe that they're confident that their research could produce faster results if they just had more money, simply because our immediate desire for return on investments dampens enthusiasm for research. And this is also backed up by Rachel Feldman at Popular Mechanics, who notes that fusion is simply just really expensive, and it can only really be done at large scales, so no one really sees the need for it. It's such a big project, big price tag, that it's really easy just to push it off to the future. But in that sense, we can't exactly push it off to the future any longer. With the world about to run out of non-renewable fuels such as coal and oil in the 2030s, we're looking at kind of an energy crisis in the near future. And we need a new source of energy in order to continue keeping up with the growing population of the Earth. So in this sense, fusion, which is green, it's renewable, and it's fairly safe, simply just represents our best bet moving forward, with either being, just the best shot that we have at it. Thank you.
All right, Thomas, the proposition is clearly identified. There's a pretty good preview, although the secondary claims when you're presenting them are not always phrased as declarative sentences, especially that third one, which is a little bit awkward, but we know what's going on. The controversy on the issue seems to be surrounding the funding. That's what you talk about at the end. So if we've spent $15 billion, it's going to take us $22 billion, and we're only short the $7 billion, then the question I have is, well, why is it going to take us to 2030? Are we not going to get that $7 billion in the near future? Are countries holding back on investing or providing the components that you're talking about? Is there some financial limitation here? Because it sounds to me like if this thing was a done deal, that would be a huge money generator, especially at the ratios of output that you're talking about. And I don't understand why people wouldn't invest in this, except that you've got this argument that there's this long-term thought process that's required, and it's not quite clear why the term is as long as it is, except that there must be technological issues. And you do, on the second point, suggest that these issues are, well, I guess it's on the third point, actually, that these issues are not really physics in nature, they're more engineering in nature, but we don't really get much explanation of what those engineering limitations are. It's obviously difficult to do that in a short presentation like this. But whenever somebody says, money is the difference, just give me the money and we'll fix it, it'll be a done deal, I'm going, well, I need some reason to believe that the money is the thing that's going to make the difference. And so I still feel a little bit like we talked about a couple of times when you came by, like we need a little bit more information about what the technology is or what the barriers are, and that they are in fact achievable. But although I think you did a good job kind of setting that out with the amount of money that's spent and the notion that the component parts are being provided there. You yourself suggest that the hesitation is that we've always looked 10 to 20 years away for fusion, and that's, you're giving us the same time limit that they've been giving us forever, so if it was back in the 80s, it's 10 to 20 years away, and now here we are in 2019 and it's 10 to 20 years away. I'm going, well, what's the difference? Why have we made, what progress have we made that makes this a little bit different? And I don't really get any substantive information that shows that those kinds of things have been overcome. So I like the subject. I think it's an interesting argument. I do think that there's a couple of places where you need to develop it more, and it's nicely presented. And you did a good job citing all of your evidence in the presentation as well. Thank you.